Hello, everyone, and good day to you. A warm welcome to today's webinar. So, my name is Abayomi Ogunjobi. I am your host for today. And just as a form of introduction, I'm the co-founder and director at Penetree. And I must say that I'm privileged to be a member of the board of directors at Fiduciary Services Limited. So, Fiduciary Services Limited is basically a private client and fiduciary services focused firm located in Victoria Island, Lagos, Nigeria, that's in West Africa. And I must say that we're delighted to have you all join us today for conversations in wealth management. And, without any further ado, right, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the moderator of this session. With almost 2 decades of professional proficiency and acumen, our moderator for today, Mercy Edukoho Amina, is the founder and executive director of Fiduciary Services Limited. Mercy is a passionate corporate solicitor. She's actually a friend of mine, right? And also she's actually a governance expert, a chartered secretary and administrator. She's also a trust and estate practitioner. And, most importantly, she's a family wealth advisor. She has a whole lot of experience in that area. Messi and I have worked together in different capacity, and I can tell you that, she has experience and knowledge in the area of the topics that we're speaking about today. So Messi leads and manages the wonderful team of Fiduciary Services Limited, and she has done an exceptional work in leading the team in what they've achieved from inception even up until now. So Messi, it's my pleasure to hand over to you to go on with the session.
Thank you so much, Abayomi. Yeah, so it's really good to be here and to have our panelists already ready to take us on our conversations today. So it's so much pleasure. This is a biannual webinar where we just speak with industry experts within the field of wealth management, family wealth advisory, family business advisory, family governance advisory. And we try to speak with them to understand what are the trends and dynamics from their day-to-day practice, from their day-to-day work that are affecting the lives and legacies of those they serve, the families and the individuals that they serve. So it's our pleasure to have everyone join us today as we continue with our conversation. So this is the third in the series, and we do hope that we would have more of this series to come in the near future. Without much ado, like we've already shared, we are trying to make sure that the industry that we serve, that the clients that we serve, that they do get value and they understand what are the issues that they should be cognizant of. And really, when you work within the wealth management space, the family wealth management space, I know that you do tend to have to want to get to the nitty-gritty, the granular details. I mean, it becomes really, because that's really the value that you put on the table. Kieran is the general manager UK for SIP Medical Family Office. He has more than 25 years experience and is very well known in the international health insurance market. In 2022, he joined SIP Medical Family Office, a Zurich and Swiss-based company. He joined them as the UK General Manager with mandate to set up and manage the UK entity. Kieran has worked for Bupa, Signal, and most recently, Now Health International, where he was General Manager, UK and Europe. Following the Brexit, Kieran switched to become an intermediary consultant for SIP and uses his experience to serve private and commercial clients. With his experience, he has significant experience as both an insurer and intermediary. So Kieran offers a great deal of industry knowledge and experience, which as always, Kieran is happy to share. Thank you for joining us, Kieran. So I'm going to ask now, just let us know what are the dynamics, what are the trends and dynamics that are shaping the industry, whether it's the insurance wealth planning industry, whether it's the health insurance planning industry, or whether it's the managing families, managing the family dynamics, managing conflict. So what are the trends and dynamics that are shaping the lives of affluent, wealthy families in the spaces that we operate?
Thanks, Mercy. Well, firstly, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And more with maybe a focus on health insurance specifically to start off with. I very much agree with what Rita was saying in terms of we're now sort of coming out of the pandemic, and that actually created some more possibilities and opportunities, but also some challenges for the actual insurers in the provision of health insurance. But from the previous session where we were talking about where traditionally a health insurance plan would cover the primary care, somebody's sick and needs to get sorted, it's become more about preventative care, wellness, and in particular where through the pandemic, not only were we as individuals working more remotely, but the insurers themselves had to be geared up to that. And one of the great innovations that we saw was the introduction of online and digital medicine. So if we link that mobily, where you have, say, maybe services coming out of Europe that could be offered across the world and including Africa. The world of health insurance is really evolving at a rate of knots, and I say lots of opportunities that it creates, and particularly for affluent individuals and families. It's also true to say with developing economies it causes some challenges. So I noted from the previous session where there can be issues around tax or licensing, so sometimes it pays to have the expert to guide you through some of these challenges. But Mercy, considering where you are as well, I thought I'd look at some trends in terms of developing nations and quality of healthcare around the world. So I thought it would be interesting to share, according to the latest statistics, that in terms of quality in healthcare across Africa, the countries are in the following order. From listing from 1 to 7 is number 1, South Africa, 2, Kenya, 3, Tunisia, 4, Algeria, 5, Nigeria, 6, Egypt, and 7, Morocco, in terms of quality of healthcare, which comes into a number of factors in terms of equipment, facilities, quality of care, etc. So when you start to equate that more to family offices or affluent people who may have that luxury for what is the most emotive of all insurances, it's maybe a good idea to think about the mobility. Just really understanding what Rita said was a really important point, not just post-pandemic, but with world tensions at the moment for those more affluent people who can move and relocate. So where you can maybe choose to have a local insurance, you can often see the benefits of an international insurance. But just conscious of my time as well. So is that okay for starters?
Yeah. Fantastic. I can't wait for you to really talk about what you do at your medical family office. I'm really looking forward to you telling us what the services entail and how and the value that you provide at SIP to families and individuals of wealth. So thank you so much for making those and telling us that South Africa, at least we do have good some good. I mean, we are not just all how will I put it, at the mercies of either Europe, Asia, or other when it comes to good medical facilities to take care of our own. So just mentioning the countries where we have good medical facilities for insurance planning purposes, for health insurance planning purposes, that can take care of the health and needs of the affluent and wealthy. I mean, it's really comforting that to know that we do have some reputable medical facilities in Africa, and you're not sending us to go to Europe or go to some other location outside our shores. Kieran, I want you to talk to us about SIP Medical Family Office. So just let us know. So what's the value that Kieran brings to the table for his clients? What does SIP do? how can you make clients' lives a lot more meaningful, and help them with longevity, health, good health, and thereabouts? So what do you do in your medical family office?
Yeah, sure. Mercy, if I can just say, adding to what Rita said, and getting into some more granular detail about the importance of such insurance policies. So I just want to add first is, and we were talking about the younger generations, right? So one of the challenges we have, whether it's a life insurance policy, but also a health insurance policy, is you have this thing called underwriting. And that can really influence the terms, the pricing, and particularly in health insurance, the younger you can catch and get the cover, the better, because you have best of health. Don't leave your health and life insurance till it's too late, because often you can be excluded for your pre-existing medical conditions, or your premiums go up. So just a little bit of granular information for those that are seriously looking at health or protection insurance as a good idea. But a little bit more about SIP, since you asked. SIP stands for Swiss Insurance Partners, and I say we kind of split ourselves into two parts, really, in relation to health insurance and protection policies such as life insurance. It is about the independent and whole of market view of placing those policies in the first place, particularly in health insurance. Those such insurance policies tend to be annually renewable. And of course, if we're thinking about family offices or our private clients, even companies, as time goes on, circumstances may change. So by having that annual renewal, as well as just placing a new customer for the first time, it's an opportunity to review circumstances and situations. Maybe a good example for an affluent client is they have changed their location. But it's about using all that. We've been in existence for 25 years, and if maybe some of you will be aware how international in health insurance came to be, but how maybe it's a different face today than what it was, say, 25 years ago. It's about just giving that expert view to our customers and our clients, but also over that time where we've built up really strong relationships with the majority of providers, and with every client being different, that we can find the best match, the best solution for a particular client. So just to give you an example, maybe we have a client who's looking to relocate to Dubai. Well, in that case, health insurance isn't a luxury, it's mandatory. And so we can give some guidance on that, when initially the person who was moving to Dubai may not have had health insurance on the top of their list. I have several clients that are African, with African roots, but are highly mobile and maybe spending time in the UK or in the States, for example. So it's important with the different insurance providers where you find the right solution, not only that it's fitting in with affordability, but it's giving them the benefits that they want, and also from a compliance perspective as well. And I think that will be one of the cool things about SIP, is where we are registered and licensed to be able to give such advice ourselves. So very much as an independent brokerage focusing on the health and protection side, that's the first part. But then again, as we discussed in the first panel, but moving on, where we're increasingly self-aware and proactive in terms of our healthcare. So if we talk about the primary care scenario where somebody's sick, it's about not just making sure they can get their insurance claims paid. It's about making sure they get the most appropriate treatment in the right location, the right time. And that can be a little bit hit and miss at times, to be honest. And therefore, we can offer that extra sense of expertise, an extra, for somebody who's not particularly used to health insurance, we can guide them through the claims process. And we even manage claims on behalf of some of our private clients. So we have multilingual services. I think we speak French. I'm the worst, by the way. I only speak English. But we have French, Italian, German speakers, Spanish as well. So you can imagine that's handy. Oh, also Russian as well. So we're an extra pair of hands to guide through, you know, what can be quite an anxious, emotional time. And the types of claims we deal with. We know last week we had to support with a medical evacuation because one of our clients broke their pelvis on the ski slope. So that could be, you know, quite a tricky situation. And also, I think another one is maybe coming out of Asia, where we get requests for lots of second medical opinions. So the individual themselves doesn't necessarily trust the advice to give. Is there an alternative method of treatment? So it's about maximizing then the quality of the plan. And where certainly from the last session, I would agree, we were talking more about mental health. That's more part of the core service of a health insurance plan. But again, more for the affluent, what we're starting to see is the topic of longevity. And the latest buzzword really that I'm seeing here in London is gut health. So people, you know, when it comes into nutrition, so all those kind of things, it's not necessarily ourselves as individuals that are giving that expertise, but we understand what the clients are looking for. I know we have one Bitcoin client who lives in Zug in Switzerland who wants to live forever. So it's Kevin, my director's job, to help him find all these alternatives to make that happen. So all sorts of interesting stuff. And then it comes back down to another thing I just wanted to add as well. My experience about what we provide is the difference in when I speak to a male client to a female client. And I've noticed how much more into detail the matriarchs go, wanting to know the quality and the specifics of the plan, whereas more, and maybe I'm being a little bit stereotypical, where more the patriarch, it's more about the premiums and the affordability. So you have everything and in between. Does that help, Mercy?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I think for me, what was very instructive was the fact that you said it's very important for us to set up these plans when you're earlier in age. I mean, earlier in life, when you're of a younger age than when you are of an older age, because then the premium that you have to pay becomes a lot more significant. So it's very, very instructive to know. I'm probably going to ask you as a follow-on question that does it mean that you keep rolling over so you start your premium maybe from your 30s, your 35, your 40, you start paying those premiums. Does it roll over up until when you get to your 80s and 90s, or and you will not have a situation where you are told that you don't have coverage, but because you've stayed that all those years, they would cover you up until old age? Is that how it works? Or you will just have to pay a higher premium and there's no exclusion when you are of an older age? Is that how it works?
Yeah, we need to split it into two, and I think maybe it would be fair to hand back to Rita to answer on the life insurance and the protection side. But if we first talk about health insurance as opposed to life insurance, yeah, so the plans tend to be annually renewable, and this is for private clients rather than group or corporate plans. They tend to go on for life, so there's no end date. That's not necessarily the case anyway if you're looking at a domestic plan, so we warn against that. But certainly in terms of the panel of insurers we work with, once you have the plan, it's annually renewable, it's for life. One of the challenges with it is that the premiums tend to be age rated. So if you think, say maybe in your sort of prime earning years, it's easier to afford and you're earning a good income. So you get to the far end of the scale where you're maybe into retirement, it becomes a little bit more of a problem, because you think about it logically, the premiums are most expensive in your old age, but actually your income's coming back down. So what we see with our affluent customers is two trains of thought. We have some clients who said they just want the best of the best comprehensive. They're not even looking at the premiums, to the case where it really does become a challenge to afford those premiums. So you might want to look at looking at your insurance as maybe a catastrophe plan. So you've set a little fund aside to manage maybe the day-to-day costs, but you still take the insurance to insure against the major costs. So maybe, you know, God forbid, but somebody inherits a cancer, for example, that could run into many hundreds of thousands of pounds or dollars. You'd want to insure against that, whereas maybe for your primary care, your doctor's visits, your medications, you know, maybe in your older age, then maybe you could take care of that yourself. And these are the kind of things that we discuss when it comes up to the renewal of the policy, because it still does come down to affordability. And these are some of the challenges that the insurers obviously have. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's fine. I think you were able to provide a bit of clarity. So Kieran, what are the advantages or disadvantages of organizing insurance, whether locally, within Africa, for those of us that are within the, I mean, not everybody can hop on a 6-hour flight, or depending on which airline you are using, basically, to London for healthcare. So what would you say are what you should consider when you're looking at a total healthcare insurance plan? Whether to subscribe to either a local or an international plan?
Sure, Mercy. I think that the most obvious one is the first one, and you know, we all have different levels of wealth and affluency, don't we? So the number one separation between a local and an international insurance plan is going to be the cost. But is you know, where possible, is to consider the benefits of an international solution as well. We were talking about age earlier, saying that it sounds like I'm doing a sales pitch. I really don't mean to sound this way, but actually one of the other benefits of being in Africa, for example, is the insurers will be looking at their data in terms of claims costs. So ultimately, it will be the cost of claims that will drive the premium costs as well. And where we're seeing one of the trends is the international insurers putting more of a focus on Africa, for example, in some of those countries we discussed earlier. So you can absolutely think locally for your health insurance. And the reality is that the cost of those annual premiums are going to be a lot more competitive than say they would be if you were looking at an individual who was based out of Switzerland or the UK. So that's one of the advantages of sticking to a local insurance. I think it is about the quality though as well. So not necessarily just in terms of the sort of more primary care or a minor illness or ailment, but when you're planning for the long term and say more some of the serious conditions. So if you have clients that are highly mobile, for example, or in the longer term that they will be mobile, or they would choose to go elsewhere for the treatment, then you can clearly see the advantages of having an international health insurance plan as opposed to a domestic plan. For those globally mobile people, if you have a domestic plan, you then you have that same issue as the age relation, because you may find that your local plan in the UK, for example, is not going to cover you if you move back to Nigeria. So again, the advantage of an international plan is you get that continuity, if you like. And again, for those then that are in that fortunate position to have that luxury, then it's a very, very good idea. And that's what we often see and would always therefore be recommending, if you can afford it, to take an international plan. The international plans, if you compare, they all come with a sort of standardized table of benefits. So you see your hospitalization benefits first, and then what we class as your outpatient benefits. So these are things like your doctor's visits or visiting the specialist. But overall, and on average, you'd see that an international plan tends to have richer cover. The reason for that is that the domestic plans are designed to complement the local healthcare systems and social security. So if I can use the UK as an example, we're very fortunate in the UK to have the National Health Service. And so for the most part, where the health insurance comes in, and it's more popular than ever now, right now, domestic insurance, because of the cost of living crisis we're having, it's designed to complement what the NHS doesn't always already provide. Whereas an international plan, you're looking for that plan to take care of you no matter what, So you've got that peace of mind. You've got that guarantee that you're not having to worry about the, the facilities that are provided by the local health system. So for me personally, it would be the case where those that can afford it would clearly benefit from having an international plan. That's not always possible for everybody. That's the reality of the situation, and so we wouldn't disrespect or rule out the idea of having a local insurance. It could be a good idea, and very mindful, as I say, looking at some of the trends as you're it's a difficult one to define what is a developing or already developed economy, but what we are seeing is say maybe some of the Western or European insurers, as it were, traditionally now starting really to focus more on Africa and regional markets in particular.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you so much for that. Yeah, that was really instructive. Kieran, I know we've talked a lot on, I know there are two aspects. There is the health insurance, and there's also the protection. There's the health insurance policies, and there's also the protection policies. So do you want to speak about the protection policies that you provide as well?
Sure, Mercy. I think some of it does overlap what Rita's been explaining, but we're saying, maybe to provide you with a bit more granular information and where we are able to support sometimes, but where it's really important to get all the information and where the limitations are. So as advisors, we are licensed to give advice on protection products that are not within investment. So you see the difference of as you were just alluding to, as part of any investment strategy, the core of that, the base of the platform is the insurance protection. So I think just again quickly touching, or to close off, the health insurance aspect, in which I commented it's the most emotive of the insurance, because that's often where you'll see the greatest frequency or the most commonality of claims. Of course, you can claim from your health insurance plan and you'll live to see another day, and it's about not necessarily paying you in a cash lump sum, but paying whatever those medical bills are to get you better, to get you back on your feet, etc. More the focus on the protection side, and where it is purely as an insurance, is to protect your financial wealth, and perhaps to keep it more at a basic level. The most obvious one to me, and to say why everybody should be thinking of an insurance plan ahead of the wealth, would be a straightforward life insurance plan to protect your property in the event that either yourself as the main income earner or your partner should pass away. That in that event, should either whether it's you or a loved one pass away, that the insurer pays out a lump sum, not only that would cover the debt on that property, but potentially to plan for the future, to give that family some respite, whether it's the spouse that's left behind or other family members. And so rather than relying on the wealth to cope with that, you can take out an insurance plan too. And when you're looking at the amounts that you'd want to insure against, or the sum that you'd like to pay out, you could be thinking of any one of a number of different factors. So this is now coming more onto the protection side, and again, maybe trying to keep it at a basic level, where you have life insurance, which is just describing that one event where you would pass away, where somebody would die. I don't know the level of awareness on this webinar today, but then next in line, I would say the next most common policy is what we'd refer to as a critical illness plan. So you may actually survive an illness or an injury, but as a result of that critical illness, that you're not able to work or carry on in the same way. So you can insure against that eventuality as well. And usually a critical illness plan would pay out as a lump sum, and has actually just happened to my brother as well, who thankfully has made it through, but he would very much benefit now from having the critical illness cover. It's more available on domestic markets than internationally, but your next level is what I would then describe, and it would be good to see with Rita whether she shares the same terminology or definition, but an income protection plan, and this becomes more so a luxury, I would say, for more because it's a higher premium. But again, where you wouldn't necessarily pass away because of an illness or an injury, but certainly more so as a result of an accident or an illness where you're not going to be able to work in the long term. And what an income protection plan would do, depending on the levels that you set it, is through to death would provide a regular income. And you can clearly see the benefits of that, of having that as an insurance rather than relying on your wealth and your savings to have. So these are the types of policies on the protection side that we offer. I just have to say with a footnote, the life and the critical illness cover is relatively straightforward on an international basis. The income protection policies right now on an international basis for private clients are quite difficult to come by. Maybe there'll be some people on the call listening in from a group level or a corporate perspective where group income protection is available on an international basis, but for corporates, and where you'd be looking at a minimum group size of 10 employees or more. So that gives you the insight. But have to stress from an SIP, my company, we're very much geared and focused to advise on the protection side, not on the investment side. And I think that's maybe where more Rita's organization is licensed, which is one of the challenges itself. And I guess the idea, it's good to have such a webinar, whether you're a family office or the private client, to be able to tap into the experts that can help you to find the right solution.
And if I could speak to that too, Kieran. That's one of the benefits I see of working across professionals. The term is blanking out on me, but when I work with families, for example, it's great to have on board, the insurance and the lawyers and the estate planners. And again, because these professionals are able to give their advice, and hopefully this advice is in the service of what does the family want? What is it that the family needs? And there are so many options out there. It's good to have so many professionals and so many advisors on board, because each one brings a different perspective to the table. So I just wanted to kind of interject with that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. What we do know and what is the reality within the wealth management space, serving affluent and high net worth individuals is extremely collaborative with other advisors. If you really want to serve the clients and you really want to serve them holistically, then you have to be collaborative. You need to know where the other advisors are, what are the value that you should bring to the table. And you are not the only one that has the expertise, and that might not be your subject of expertise as well. But just understanding that these are the issues that clients should address, or that should be at the forefront of clients' awareness, then I think that just helps. And being collaborative, bringing other advisors on board also helps as well. And that's really why we're having these conversations, because we really want to ensure that in providing services to clients, that they are holistic. They are not just looking at it from one very minute area, but you're looking at it from a more broader, inclusive and holistic manner as well. What I wanted you to also highlight, I know you've mentioned it in different ways. Let's talk about longevity, basically. How do you think this affects HNIs at this time and age? And what would you think everyone should look out for when it comes to longevity?
Well, so I wish for this part, I do wish I'd had my fellow director Kevin with me, because he would be able to go into a lot more detail. And so it is something we can speak about. But for me, and I think it was mentioned on the last panel, that how certain things can be buzzwords as well. But if I'm putting this more then from a health insurance perspective, it stems from the fact that we are more self-aware. And you're building this into sort of developing economies. If we're talking about Africa, let's say, for example, Mercy, and then today's seminar is about those more affluent and wealthy, and so it's just natural where you're in that fortunate position where you do have the wealth, that you then have the affordability to be able to look at longevity. And there are several ways within the sort of health arena that you can do that. And we've already discussed things like healthy eating, doing exercise, of course. I think that we all know that. But there's certain areas of medicine that are really now starting to focus on this. So for me, maybe just to give 2 examples, and where I would say it's still a bit early days now, but maybe you'll start to see more in the next 10, 20 years of what you call stem cell transplants and stuff. But this is going to really change the whole world of healthcare and blockchains and how things get done. So where you look at, say, today you could have certain cells frozen, and so that in the event of a medical condition, you can use cell or stem cell transplant technology with the injection of a cell to make a medical condition go away. But we're still in the infancy of that. But that's something to do with longevity in that respect. You've got the absolute extreme at the moment, which is cryogenic technology, where this is having the head and part of the body frozen. It actually happens. It actually exists. Whether that's going to go, so there you're talking about the extremes. But stem cell technology is a really big thing for the future. The challenge I think about that is that it's now medically possible to treat people with deadly diseases to make them better. The problem is, who's going to pay for these things? Because the insurers would have a problem, and then you've got the pharmaceutical companies, all these kind of things. So it then becomes a bit political. So you have to think about that with longevity. And then maybe more bringing it back home to what's more sort of realistic or practical when we go back into preventative wellness. So instead of going for physical checks, where you have things like, your x-rays or your MRI sort of CT scans, where these days, through blood and urine tests, we can learn a lot more about our bodies. So these are the kind of things when we're talking about longevity. I can link that back into insurance. That causes one of the problems with the costs, because you say, look at all the advances that we're consistently having in medicine. It actually means we're living longer. So you have one individual who maybe would have died from a medical condition 20 years ago is actually now able to survive from that condition, to live another day, to then be treated for another medical condition. So you can imagine then where this drives a cost issue. And you have all these different things. But again, on the whole, if it's that focus on, some of us are fortunate to be in that more affluent position. And I remember, Mercy, we spoke when we were coming onto this call. It's a simple saying, and I think we're all guilty of it. But we'll be focusing on our future and thinking about our savings and our pension or our property. But actually, if you really think about it, your greatest wealth is your health. And that's where longevity. So it's a simple saying, and that's what this is all about.
Right.
Yeah,
And
thank you for that. I mean, just
could...
thank you for reiterating that. Okay, so our time is fast spent. So 1 minute, just let us have your concluding thoughts.
Well, without sounding like the salesperson, which I guess I am in a way, but you know, do have a think about the importance, either, you know, whether you're a client yourself or for your clients, the importance of an insurance. Sometimes insurance has a bad reputation, you know, if you take a plan, because it's not going to pay out. That, in my experience, is generally not the case. Think about how beneficial, whether it's on the health insurance side or on the protection side, on Rita's side. Do think about the earlier you take out these plans, are better for sure. Think about having an expert to help and support with the family office to give you that wider range of options, not just in terms of affordability, but also from a licensing and a compliant perspective as well in the market that we're in today. And yeah, I think also, if you're likening it to what is ultimately an insurance policy and seems very boring, that if we're talking about topics like longevity and mental health and preventative well-being, that actually these are where the insurance policies are out there become much more interesting, because they're able to give you all these additional and value-added services. And then, yeah, whether it's Rita or Amber, then you know, these are the types of things that we can help and support with from an expert point of view, and we're delighted to do. I also agree with what you said, Mercy, as well. The collaboration piece and the fact that Rita mentioned she has an office in Singapore could come in very handy. So I'd like to get Rita's contact details. And so collaboration is key, and maybe Amber too. So thank you very much for having me today. It's been a pleasure.